Hello YouTube. If you have had any interest in disaster preparedness, you have probably heard about the 72-hour rule before. It is the recommendation that many authorities from around the world do, that you should always have at least 72 hours, that's 3 days, worth of food, water and other supplies you need in your house at all times. And the common rationale given for this is that in the event of some kind of disaster, it might take the authorities some time to muster a good response, to start helping people in need. So you might need to. So it's good if you can take care of yourself for some time. But why so far it makes sense, right? But why 72 hours? Where does that idea come from? Now with our current situation with the pandemic, we see that a lot of people around the world are put on lockdown, not for 72 hours, but I don't know, sometimes closer to 72 days. And in other cases, it might be a lot less than 72 hours that messes with you. So why 72 hours? Why not 24 hours? Why not 48 hours? Why not a week? Why not 10 days? Why not two weeks? Well, from what I've been able to understand, the origins of this 72-hour rule is that if there is a nuclear strike in an area, the radioactive fallout from that will be almost immediately lethal the first 72 hours. So back in the Cold War era, where a lot of this started, the recommendation was that if you have a shelter to protect you from to protect you from a nuclear blast, you would need at least 72 hours worth of supplies down there for everyone who would use the shelter, because within those first 72 hours you would not be able to leave the shelter at all. But after those 72 hours you could get out of the shelter for a short period of time to get some more supplies. So if you are concerned about that very specific scenario, that you have a shelter that you plan to escape down to in case of a nuclear strike, the 72-hour rule is very, very good, I guess. I don't count. I'm not a nuclear scientist or anything like that, but it makes sense, okay? But if we have any other perspective on what we want to prepare for, or what situations we might expect, there are some other considerations we might want to make when it comes to home preparedness, like food, water and stuff you have in your home. I think one of the biggest considerations will be your financial means, how much storage space you have in your home, how into prepping you are, what kind of scenarios you are worried about. Those will probably be the big considerations for how much food and other supplies you can or want to have in your home. But somewhere where a popular thing amongst, you see a lot of preppers, survivalists and other people like that talk about is different kind of bags. Okay, we talk about bug out bags. That is a bag you usually have in your home, and in case you would very quickly need to evacuate your home, you hope you have what you need to survive for some time in that bug out bag. And that time is very often 72 hours. You also have people who have get home bags. That would be a bag you have in your car or at your workplace. So if you needed to leave your work on foot, or your car kind of breaks down and you need to leave your car and get home, you would have stuff that you hope will help you survive for some time so you can get home, and that time is very often 72 hours. There are some other variations on this. There are a lot of different bags basically, but I think that here there are very important considerations that might move away from the 72-hour rule might be quite detrimental, because if this is something you plan to carry while you are walking on foot for a fairly long distance, consideration of weight is a very big one. Let's say you live 20-30 kilometers from your workplace. That's a long walk. If you need to have to leave your work and you couldn't get to a car or a bus or train or other, and you wanted to walk home 2-3 or 20-30 kilometers, you would probably be walking all night and you would be very tired when you got home, but you probably would get home. I mean, fairly normal human walking pace is 5 kilometers per hour, so it would take you 6 hours to walk 30 kilometers with a few breaks in there. So you would be walking all night, you would be very tired when you got home, and it would be a long walk, and that walk would feel so much longer if you carried a bag, a 10, 15, maybe even 20 kilo bag full of stuff that you might need if you were to survive in the woods for 72 hours. Especially if you combine that with other, in some cases, very sensible, very good rules for survival gear, like the rule of threes. Not the rule of threes I talked about in an earlier video on this channel. The rule of three I'm talking about now is the idea that you should not have one way to start a fire, you should have 3 ways to start a fire, because some of those might fail for different reasons, so you want backups, you want redundancy. And the same thing, you might not want 1 cutting tool, you want 3 cutting tools, and you don't want 1 this, you want 3 of that. And if you take those 2 and put in a bag for 7 that you will carry, it will be a fairly big and heavy bag. And you might say, but Simon, is it not better to have it and don't need it than to need it and don't have it? Yeah, that's true. But another thing that is true is Ounces make pounds, and pounds makes pain. My concern would be that if you have a very heavy backpack that is very and that will make you more exhausted, it will slow you down so that 20-30 kilometer walk will now take a longer time, you will be more tired, and that in combination will increase the risk of you accidentally hurt yourself. You sprain an ankle or stumble and worst case you break something. That would be horrible, but just a sprained ankle would be really big mess. Imagine you have 10-15 kilometers left to go and now you can't support your weight on one of your foot and you start to limp or crawl that distance. No. Okay, you might say that, yeah, but in that case it's good that I have my 72-hour bag because I can make a camp and I can live there. Yes, that is true, but you might not get in that situation if you had just had a raining poncho and a good flashlight and a water bottle. Because then you wouldn't have to carry then you wouldn't have had to carry a whole lot of stuff. You would be lighter, you would not be as tired, and you would, in my opinion, in many cases, have a much better chance of getting home. And with bug out bag, it's also, I would also say the same thing. How far is it between where you live and the place you plan to bug out to? And that could be a friend's house. And just side note, it's I would strongly say, without claiming expertise, I would say that I'm very convinced that in most cases, if you don't have a plan for where you are going to bug out to, even if it's just a friend's house or your parents' house or whatever, then you should probably not be bugging out. Because let's face it, very few of us are survival experts who would live for days and weeks out in the woods, especially not in some kind of disaster. So yeah, how far is it from your home to the place you plan to bug out to? How much stuff do you need to get to travel that distance? How much, if you want to put in extra redundancies and stuff, start to consider how much weight does this add, and what would that weight do to my endurance and my risk of injury. I hope this have made some sense. This have been useful for you. I think it's all I have to say on the subject. Peace out.